Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays. And yes, you foolish mortals, we have now come to this, as was teased in the last Halloweenish review video. This one film that is a biopic film, all about the behind the scenes, the making of this, but yet how it is done is the total opposite. Besides, because it does very well recapturing what supposedly happened when it came to this famous, iconic, silent horror film from Germany that survived many years later and all that. And yes, and how it was portrayed and brought to life in this biopic, and what happened in 1921. Yeah. I don't know, I just felt like starting off, it just immediately struck me, just doing something as a vampire, in the case that one of the main characters all throughout the film supposedly is an actual vampire. But I'll mention that in just a moment. So, yes, guys, this one biopic film that, and how it depicts when this movie was filmed. And, even though, because with a lot of biopics, they're not always very, truthful and such to what actually happened, but yet at the same time, they can still be enjoyable, and as long as they're done in a good way. And man, on account of this, yeah, it was really good, but man, a lot of crazy things that happen in this biopic film, all about the making of 1922's Nosferatu, and, has a great cast of talents, and just everything about it, yeah. So, yes, guys, that's right. I am now finally reviewing from 2000, the biopic all about the making of Nosferatu, Shadow of a Vampire. Yes. Yeah, so Shadow of a Vampire. I've been meaning to watch this for a while, been very fascinated in checking this out, and now the time finally came, the best opportunity to watch it and review it, part of the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays. And, yeah, I gotta say, again, this is very interesting. And honestly, I had seen very few bits and pieces of this movie, a few clips and such. And one of my favorite parts that comes in this movie that only has, say, Malkovich and Dafoe, but until I get there, that's very later on in the movie. But yeah, I really didn't know what to fully expect, what exactly was going to go down in this biopic. And man, because what a ride this was. But at the same time, it was very enjoyable. Definitely was. Yeah, and, the whole thing that happens in this movie, because supposedly in this movie, it depicts that Max Schreck, who played this guy, was supposedly an actual vampire. That is just a myth and just not for real, no. But, with it being done in this movie, where it depicts that he's an actual vampire, yeah, I think it's done pretty well. In a good way, of course. But again, probably that wasn't the case in reality back in 1921, and from 1921 to 1922. Yeah. Yeah, but just overall, because with what the storyline has to offer with this biopic, with great cast of talents whom they portray on screen, getting to see, what it's like, what it was like, the old days, the very old days of when movies were shot, especially on account that, a lot of times we see them in, lab coats, and, especially Nosferatu's director, being the guide and giving instructions to the actors what to do and so on. The suspenseful moments, the unexpected moments, the chilling moments, all of that is amazing. The set locations depicting how Nosferatu was filmed, and with those locations in Germany, all that, from, say, Czechoslovakia, I think I mispronounced that some, but you know what I'm talking about, and Berlin, all those places they went through, this journey of bringing this movie to life, and this visionary director, F.W. Murnau, if I got his name right, being cited as one of the best filmmakers of all time, especially during that time and era. Just overall, because Shadow of a Vampire may not what you expect at first, and if anybody would of course see Nosferatu itself before this, but once you get to this, you are in for something, and hopefully you will enjoy it. It depends. It depends, because I'm sure there's no doubt that there have been some people that probably didn't get into this, but no, just overall, the biopic film itself, from Lionsgate, BBC Films, Shadow of a Vampire, it was excellent. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so with the first things I've had to say about Shadow of a Vampire now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. F.W. Murnau. Again, I might be butchering his name some, but yeah, I had it before, but just, anyways, is struggling to create his silent classic, Nosferatu, on location in Eastern Europe. The director is obsessed with making this the most authentic vampire movie ever. To that end, FW has employed a real vampire, supposedly, Max Schreck, explaining to the crew that he is the ultimate of the new breed, the method actor, trained by Stanislavski, I think I said that right, himself. Schreck will appear only in character and only at night. Okay, so now with reading the description / the story out of the way, now let us dive in / break down the film itself, shall we? Okay, so, well, because, Frederick William, because, his full name, I'll just go with, Frederick Wilhelm, if I said that right, but I'll just stick with, Frederick, Anyways, so, it's interesting how the movie starts off in, this art piece, it basically depicts a war, and as the credits roll. Interesting way for the opening credits to start, and then, well, we come straight to our cast members, the crew working on Nosferatu, and we have the director of Nosferatu himself, Frederick Wilhelm Murnau, but I'm sticking with Frederick, being portrayed / played by good old John Malkovich, yes. And to go ahead and talk about Malkovich, because Malkovich, he's fantastic. Of course, he's a fantastic actor, no matter what he does. And man, his portrayal as Nosferatu's director is pretty interesting, because it's something very odd about him that what is this guy's beef and such? Man, especially it's him and Max Schreck that really are some oddballs in this movie and how they're depicted. But so and as we know, and I'm sure you know this, because Nosferatu's director was not allowed to bring to life Bram Stoker's Dracula novel to the big screen. Bram Stoker's estate refused this literally. However, very clever on the director, instead of the film being called Dracula and with, depicting a lot from the book, with some changes here and there, he changed parts of the story, the characters' names, and the vampire altogether, and also with the movie title. Dracula no longer being called Dracula, instead being called Count Orlok. And the title of the movie, which of course being Nosferatu. Yep, and the rest is history. But then, of course, later on, even though the movie doesn't mention this at all, because this is definitely after the movie was finished in all completion, because Bram Stoker's widow was upset by this and demanded all copies of Nosferatu being destroyed. But sadly, that wouldn't happen altogether, because a few copies would be survived. They would survive, and the rest is history. Yeah. Anyways, so production has started with Nosferatu, and the producer of Nosferatu, Albin Grau, if I got the last name right or wrong, being played by Udo Kier. And yeah, because basically the producer, and I'm just gonna stick with, them being referred to as the producer/writers. I'll say their names first, then I'll just stick with producer, writer, etc. The producer of the film, because he has quite a lot of issues with the director, because the director is just keeping a lot of stuff secret and private from the producer. And, well, pretty much the producer needs to know these things. But, no, the director, he gets his way. He manages to get his way all throughout the movie. And for his crew to obey and listen exactly what they need to do. And one of the stars of Nosferatu, Greta, whom plays the main female character Nosferatu, Greta being played/portrayed by Catherine McCormack, if I got that right, yeah, because she finds this, rubbish and such, because with having to act, in front of a camera when she feels more appropriately she should act in front of a live audience. But the director, making it clear about what it would be like to do this on camera and so on. And I'm sure he makes a good point, but still, Anyways, and, very soon, the whole crew of Nosferatu is to disembark from Berlin to Czechoslovakia. Again, I probably mispronouncing that, but again, you know what I'm talking about. I had it before, but it's just one of those things. And, because they're very hesitant at first about this travel thing and how much it's going to cost, but the director being very insistent on it. And then at one point he has to disembark for a little bit, and he actually, and they presume that he's going to this hormone appointment, which turns out to be the case. It's a party, a hormone party. Yeah, and Murnau, I got that right now, Murnau. So, okay, I'll stick with Murnau this time. So, yeah, all right, as I originally intended. So, yeah, so Murnau, because at this hormone party, minding his own business, but then it would be mentioned, and something else that was not mentioned to the producer, on whom is playing the vampire of this movie. And, yeah, because not being mentioned to the producer, this pisses him off still, and, well, one of the stars of Nosferatu, Gustav, whom in Nosferatu, he plays Thomas, yep, and Gustav being played/portrayed by good old Eddie Izzard, yeah, and Eddie Izzard, well, yeah, he too was fantastic in this movie. Everybody, a part of Shadow of the Vampire, they did a fantastic job, and I'll continue, and the rest of the cast members I'm going to bring up, but yeah. Anyways, so Murnau, having not mentioned this to the producer whatsoever about whom is playing the vampire, however, Gustav knows about this, and telling the producer and the others that the vampire of this movie, which be named Count Orlok, will be played by Max Schreck, and not too familiar with Max Schreck, and, and who Max Schreck is that Murnau has, chosen, handpicked and chose to play the character and such. And, well, even Gustav making it clear to the producer that there's really nothing that the producer can do, because, yeah, the director, which being Murnau, he's in charge, so yeah. Anyways, so they make their destination, leaving Berlin and so on. Even there's a small group of press people, questioning about the movie and on account of the film's director. And the producer and the others making it clear that Murnau is, a visionary filmmaker and so on. Not to mention that Murnau, he's definitely into science. and with him doing, scientific stuff, directing this movie, and how the movie specifically states. But yeah, so a long journey. They take a train, and they finally make their destination. They all, some of them hop in a cab, and others, like, on a coach with horses, and they make their destination to this creepy hotel that they will stay in, and they'll film parts of that hotel for the movie. And some of the other cast members in this movie, because the script writer, Henrik Galeen, I think I said that right, being played by John Adam Gillett. Yeah, being portrayed / played by John Adam Gillett. We also have a camera assistant by the name of Paul being portrayed / played by Nicholas Elliott, and the main cameraman, Wolfgang Mueller, being played by Ronan Vibert. Yeah, and Ronan Vibert, he's a good actor. I know I've seen him before in a bunch of other stuff, but yeah. When they get to the hotel, and it's up to here where Wolf is going through quite a lot of stuff. Like, he would slowly but surely not feel so well, and just being paranoid and all that. And also there was a moment where the script girl, she's the script assistant, Maria, she's very hesitant when Murnau explains that the people that reside in the hotel, they're villagers and so on, they'll be a part of the movie. They'll be the extras. And the script assistant, Maria, complaining that they don't know how to act, but Murnau assuring that, this is going to work and so on. The director always getting his way. So later on, and when they all settle in for the evening, like, there was a moment where, say, Gustav noticed some wrestling and some stuff going on that he heard in the room that Wolf was staying in, and just noticing that Wolf is just very paranoid and all that, just, very, very kind of like jittery. And just, he didn't mean to disturb Wolf, and he goes back to the room he's staying in. Then at one point, we don't see his face, but someone comes down the stairs with a ferret in a cage, and, well, we see our first glimpse of some creepy hands with very long nails, and we know who it is, and whom is going after the ferret, and supposedly, we'll feast on the ferret. Oh boy. So, by the next day, resuming filming proceeds with Nosferatu, them filming the film and such, and then when it comes to, at one point, the evening time, they film at this location of this castle, and the producer being upset once again because of one part of the castle they're shooting at, and it was unbeknownst to him, and just, but Murnau calming down the producer, and thus, them proceeding. And this is where we finally see the vampire himself emerge in all of his glory, Max Schreck, whom plays the titled character. But, really, you gotta keep in mind that his name's not Nosferatu, okay? His name is Count Orlok in the movie. So Max Schreck, who plays Count Orlok in Nosferatu, and Max Schreck being played / portrayed by good old Willem Dafoe. Yes. And of course, what can you say about Willem Dafoe? Because he's a fantastic actor, and he did not disappoint in Shadow of the Vampire. He was fantastic, His portrayal of Max Schreck in this, and again, the movie depicting that Max Schreck is a vampire, but of course in reality not really, but still, it doesn't stop the fact that Willem Dafoe was fantastic as Max Schreck, portraying him in this particular way. Not to mention that all throughout the film, we see Max Schreck in that makeup, because it's established in the movie that, and most obviously from Murnau, that Max Schreck will be present specifically during the evening times, and being in that makeup all the time, and while they're filming and such. Not being out of makeup, all that, just, And, and just the crew and how they each react to the presence of Max Schreck, well, I mean, it's obvious that they are uncomfortable and a bit disturbed and such. And, Yeah, one of the first scenes that Gustav films with Max Schreck is where, yeah, Count Orlok welcomes him inside the castle, and Murnau guiding and telling Gustav to stay in character and to proceed with what he has to do in this scene, approach and make his way inside the castle. And once that's done, they cut. Well, there is one moment where we see Wolf just not doing so well. He's on the floor, just not doing that great. And once they finish filming that evening, just for that one scene, yep, they disembark and they leave Max Schreck at the castle, because unbeknownst to them, because Murnau even explaining that, Max Schreck will be okay in the castle by himself and all that. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, up to that point, and when they filmed the scene where, Max Schreck welcomes Gustav into the castle as their characters, the producer, he would realize that Max Schreck is from no acting agency. Nothing. And yeah, because again, like I said earlier, just Murnau just handpicked Max Schreck randomly, and for him to play the vampire of this movie and such. Yeah. Just something else that Murnau just going off topic and such filmmaking. But, he still gets his way. And by the way, because those that were running the hotel, the innkeepers, because, yeah, can't forget to mention them. The innkeeper being played by Milos Helvaka, if I said that right, probably not, but again, you know me sometimes. And the innkeeper's wife, Mara-Lena Junker, because there were a few moments with the landlady / the innkeeper's wife where when they filmed earlier, when they filmed that one scene where Gustav is waking up in the room and all, and because he was handed the book all about vampires and such, well, the landlady came in and ruined the shot, well, kind of, and because she was complaining about the crosses being taken down and all that, just, yeah. And even when she would notice, when they come back to the hotel after filming at the castle, and with the wolf not being himself, her noticing about Wolf, just something to do with vampires and such, but Murnau just telling her to shut her mouth and all that, just, yeah. Okay, but anyways, and to kind of speed things up some, because, yeah, well, when it would come up to, say, them filming the part where, yeah, as their characters, Orlok has to sign papers because of the real estate and all that, well, when Max Schreck would reveal himself to the entire cast and crew on set, because, and like I said, the cast and crew being very uncomfortable and a bit scared of Max Schreck's presence, but Murnau assuring them that he's a method actor. Or is he? Anyways, and yeah, them filming that scene where Orlok is to sign the papers and wearing that hat of his, and, well, Max Schreck, he kind of goes off script. Even when, like, say, the portrait of Gustav's character's on-screen wife drops out of his on-screen bag, and Schreck identifying Greta in the picture, but that's not in the script, and Murnau telling Schreck that he's not supposed to know who she is and all that. And not to mention, the cameraman himself, Wolfgang, is getting weaker and weaker by this point, just, yeah. And some awkwardness that goes on while filming, but Murnau, he manages to keep things going pretty well. Yeah, and turns out to go good. And when they finish filming that part. And then even after that, because there would be a moment where we see, like, the same mysterious figure whom we did not see his face when bringing the ferret to Max Schreck. Well, this time he brought a bottle of liquid, which apparently it's blood. He delivers it to Schreck, and at that point Schreck hints that he is in fact a vampire, and sharing some details about what happened to him years ago, and when he, what he drank and so on, just, yeah. And we would find out whom that mysterious figure was making those, deliveries to Schreck to feast on and all that a little later. But then when it comes to, say, them filming another scene involving Schreck and Gustav, where they're at the table feasting and such, well, Yeah, at a certain point, things get out of hand. Even like, say, when it comes to, say, Murnau, again, guiding the cast and crew what to do on camera, and by telling Gustav to keep, cutting the bread and all that, then what it would lead to him slicing his thumb a little, some blood dripping. And that's when Shrek, again, going off script and just lunging at Gustav with the blood on his thumb, and then the lights burn out, and what would happen next is, well, it turns out that Shrek, he went for Wolf, and yeah, because that would explain why Wolf was acting strange, and ever since, they made their way to the hotel and from there on, because yeah, clearly, Shrek had something to do with this, and Murnau being very disappointed in what Shrek has been doing, just causing a lot of trouble behind the scenes and with the cast and crew. And they attend to Wolf, they call it a day, and leaving the equipment behind, and even Murnau, he tells Shrek to stay there. And because of that, yeah, Shrek, I mean, he obeys. And Shrek, he would then check out the equipment, the filming equipment and all that, being very fascinated with that kind of technology in the early 1920s, like rolling the camera and seeing some footage that had been shot. Most prominently, watching footage of a sunrise, because in the case of vampires, they are allergic to sun, and, well, because vampires never really seen the sunrise and all that, well, in the case of Shrek, and supposedly he's a vampire, yeah, getting to see that having been filmed on camera. So that's a very interesting moment, and for Shrek, just, yeah, with him being very fascinated with that technology, the film equipment, and seeing and watching footage of a sunrise. And after that, well, because when we come back to Murnau, the producer and the writer, they get into a heated argument where Murnau shows no remorse with what has happened to poor Wolfgang, and he's preparing to just, yeah, replace Wolfgang with a new main camera guy. And yeah, the writer being very upset by this. I mean, even for the producer, good on him, where, he didn't want them to beat one another, Murnau and the writer, like, them acting like children and such. But, still, the producer is upset about this, but still, Murnau, he gets his way, even managing to, have the film still be in production, talking with the studio and all that, just, yeah. And Murnau, yeah, planning to proceed getting a new camera guy. And then after that, there would be a moment between, say, Murnau and Shrek, and it turns out that mysterious figure, yeah, obviously it was a guy, that was bringing Shrek some stuff to feast on, turns out to be Murnau, yep. And apparently Murnau has made an agreement / deal with Shrek. Most prominently, he will have Shrek feast on Greta. Yeah, that being the main part of the deal. And with Shrek being a part of this movie, acting as the vampire of the film. And yeah, and Murnau, being upset towards Shrek with what's happened, and even when Murnau, he would then mention to Shrek on where they're going to film the climax and with what's left in the movie, and they will travel by sea. They'll go to an island, Heligoland, if I pronounce that right or wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. But also, they'll make their way to Wismar, yeah, a city in Germany. However, Shrek, he will not do so. He will not travel by sea, traveling by air. Yeah, it seems that he'll do that. And Wismar still being upset towards Shrek, but eventually, it all comes down to with, what Murnau obliges from Shrek's demands, and especially on account of that, there has to be shots / scenes filmed with Shrek as the vampire on that boat. And because of Shrek's demands, it would lead to Murnau ordering for a replica of the boat that appears in the movie to be built right where the castle is, and thus, that's what happens. And, Well, and Murnau still keeping his word to Shrek that by the end of the movie being finished, then Greta is his to feast slash bite, biting on her neck and such. Okay, and then, well, we would then see a replica of the boat, the ship being built and such, right in front of the castle. And there's a moment between the writer and producer. They're taking some time, relaxing, drinking a little bit of alcohol, and they're talking about Greta. And that's when Max steps in and hangs out with them for a little bit, tastes some alcohol, and he shares with the writer and producer that he's not very impressed with how the book was written of Dracula, that it has false information about Dracula. And Max mentions to them that, for over 400 years, Dracula had not had any servants and not able to, turn humans into vampires. And then the producer asks Shrek how he became a vampire. Well, centuries ago, he met/encountered this woman that had something to do with him being turned into a vampire, but because he aged, years later, he had forgotten all about her image/her face. Can't remembering whom she was and what she looked like. And the writer and producer, because they had a few drinks, well, they think that it's all rubbish and that, he's still in character. But then there's a moment where Shrek, he snatches a bat that was, very close to them, and he feasts on the bat, taking the bat's blood. And after that, then he takes another drink of alcohol and he walks off. Man, that was something. And yeah, because, well, even though they had some drinks, that they know what they saw, and we, the audience, know what we just saw, what Shrek did. Yeah. And anyways, and then we would then come to our new camera guy by the name of Fritz Arno Wagner, being played/betrayed by good old Cary Elwes, a.k.a. Wesley from Princess Bride, and Mel Brooks' Robin Hood. Everything that he's done, we know him so well. Yeah, great actor, great guy. Yeah, and of course, he too, he does not disappoint in Shadow of the Vampire. So yeah, being this new hotshot camera guy that is hired by Murnau for Nosferatu, and, when he lands the project and meets with the rest of the crew, most prominently the writer and producer, and it doesn't take too long for them to actually have a liking to this new camera guy. Even when Fritz, he shares with them about the whole thing of slow motion, and apparently this is the first time they're hearing about slow motion, and with what Fritz describes, specifically about slow motion, and as we all know, with slow motion, and it seems that, yeah, Fritz is a very promising camera guy, and yeah, he does pretty well going along with being the camera guy shooting Nosferatu. And so, filming still proceeds with Nosferatu and with the new camera guy. Even there's a moment where Fritz, he tries to interact with Shrek, but Shrek, he's not impressed, doesn't want anything to do and not wanting to know Fritz at all. And a little montage we get where, yeah, because the more they're filming, and when it comes to more scenes/shots being filmed on the ship, and yeah, cool shots with Shrek, rising from his coffin and all that, just, yeah, awesome. And not to mention that, yeah, I can tell, and I'm sure you can as well, there are a few times in Shadow of the Vampire, they do show clips of Nosferatu itself. A few being incorporated into Shadow of the Vampire, one or two shots of the ship and with the rats coming out of the crate, or say, the coachman, which of course being Count Orlok. Yeah, that's straight from Nosferatu. I would know and you would know too, because it is. But yeah, then eventually, the cast and crew would then find themselves back and in Germany, Berlin, and yeah, finding their way to Westmere, where they will film what's left of Nosferatu, and we once again see Greta. Yep, Greta stepping in with her pet dog, and Fritz happens to know Greta and trying to, like, make a move on her because of her hormones, but just being a diva and just, like, not really interested with what Fritz has to offer, just, yeah. Yeah, and also because, you know, and as you know, Greta, whom plays, Ellen, Thomas's wife in Nosferatu, but man, because with how Greta's portrayed in this, like, interesting, but at the same time really good. Yeah, and with Catherine's performance portraying Greta, yeah, of course, again, she's fantastic. Everybody a part of this movie, like I said, they're all fantastic. And then we would come back straight to Shrek, and this is one of my favorite parts of the movie. Just, yeah, between, say, John Malkovich and Dafoe as their characters and whom they're portraying. Because, yeah, well, the director still being upset toward Shrek and, well, telling Shrek that, you know, he will stay away from his crew and the cast, and most prominently Greta. And Shrek, by this point, because, yeah, he can sense the presence of Greta, and he just wants her, but the director makes it very clear to Shrek that Greta will be in the last scene of the movie alongside with him, and that's when he can have her. And it just gets a bit more intense and out of hand, and even when, yeah, because Shrek, he then, you know, tells the director to, this is hardly your picture any longer. And then he just gets pissed and he just goes for Shrek, like, choking him. But then Shrek, he has a creepy look where he's enjoying it, just staring at him. And this freaks out the director, because, yeah, and that's when he bolts, because, like, this is too scary for me. I'm getting the F out of here. Just like, yeah, you're crazy. But that scene itself, like, again, just one of my favorites, and it's really good. Just, yeah, the chemistry between Malkovich and Dafoe in this scene, yeah, it's really good. Okay, and after that, there is a moment where the writer gets the crew together and, you know, knowing where Max Schreck is residing and finding his coffin, and the writer claiming that Schreck is indeed a vampire, and especially on account of what he witnessed Shrek doing, like feasting on the bat and such. And the producer, I mean, he was there too, but the producer rules this out, saying it was because of the alcoholism. But, well, again, he was a witness too, but, I mean, him thinking it was just the booze, not exactly, no. Even Fritz, he finds this rubbish too, and then a little later he would do a hormone yoga section with the script girl, yeah, yeah, because again, that being, say, Maria, her being the script assistant, yeah, so obviously having some fun time with her. But then, a little later, well, there is a moment where they can hear Greta screaming from her room. Fritz and, yeah, a few others, they check on her, and it turns out that she's high and dry from this medication she took. And she exposes her boobies, literally. And that's the only time we get boobies in this movie. It's true. Anyways. So yeah, and then, you know, once everybody gets back in their rooms, well, Shrek is lurking and attempting to go inside and go for Greta, but the door's locked on account that Fritz locked it, and Shrek passes by the rider, and yeah, and Shrek just keeping it cool. Then it would lead to, say, where Shrek would encounter and seeing Fritz and the producer in the room where, yeah, they will be shooting the final scene of Nosferatu, but a door opens, which exposes sunlight, and Shrek, he flees from the sunlight, because, yeah, as we know, vampires can't be near sunlight. And then, at one point, Fritz and the producer, because they haven't heard from Murnau for a little bit, and when they break down his door in the bedroom he's staying in, well, it turns out he gave himself some laudanum. Yeah, I think I said that right. Which is basically a centicure of opium, if I said that right, yeah. Yeah, so he took that stuff, and, well, he would then tell Fritz and the producer that it's true. Shrek is indeed a vampire, and explaining, like, the details on when it would come to him, you know, hiring Shrek, and also, like, when he was a student, he read a book about vampires and all that. Just this details and information that he gives to both of them, just, yeah. And, of course, seems as though that they believe him now, but yeah. And, well, thus, they'll plan on trying to take down and defeat Max Schreck. And, you know, they'll still proceed on filming the final sequence for Nosferatu that has to do with, well, Max Schreck and Greta. Okay, so up to the climax, where we have Murnau, Greta, Fritz, the producer, and Shrek all in the same room/set, about to film one of the final moments in Nosferatu, where Count Orlok goes for, Greta's character and such. And, yeah, of course, Greta being creeped out by Shrek's presence, and even when, yeah, she's, she lays on the bed, and with the staff that, she's supposed to use to impale Count Orlok, well, Greta would notice that Shrek is not casting a reflection on a mirror, and she freaks out, but Murnau, Fritz, and the producer, they use that laudanum on her, injected in her to, be in a sexy sleep and such, and thus they can proceed filming. And when, they roll the camera, action, Shrek proceeds by going for Greta's neck, which he does so. However, the laudanum that was in Greta's blood, well, because he got a whip of it, it caused Shrek to go to sleep. And for a little while, Murnau, Fritz, and the producer, they're waiting for quite a while. And up until the time comes when the sun rises, that's when they will attempt to kill Shrek once and for all. And when the time comes, the time is nearing, and with the sun rising, they proceed to pull the chains and for the door to open. But it turns out Shrek beat them because he detached the chains to opening the door, and yeah, and well, now all three of them are stuck in the same room with Shrek. And when Shrek regains consciousness, Fritz, he whips out a gun, shooting Shrek, but that has no effect because, yeah, Shrek being immortal, turns out that he is a vampire. And, well, Shrek would kill each Fritz and the producer. He would twist Fritz's neck and choking the producer. However, that is with the exception of Murnau. Yeah, he's spared, and still showing no remorse, being totally unfazed that Shrek killed the camera guy and the producer. And he proceeds by rolling the camera, letting Shrek go for the rest of Greta's neck, biting her some more. And just by this point, Murnau has become crazy and being totally obsessed with this movie to proceed on finishing it. It's almost done. But then eventually, when the writer and the rest of the crew come in, they open the doors, the sunbeam hits on Shrek, and that iconic shot where, he's just, his hands and all that, and yep. That's when Max Schreck would meet his demise, being burned by the sun. Yep. And, yeah, Monroe finally finishes the movie. Yep, that's a wrap. And, yeah, what a heck of a way for this movie to end off. Literally, that's it. Because after Shrek is killed by the sunlight, filming for Nosferatu has officially wrapped, and the last bit of dialogue we get from John Malkovich as Murnau, sorry. Just what a heck of a way for this movie to end off, without a doubt. Yeah. But it was still good. It was still good, despite the fact that, Shadow of the Vampire, even though it's not very faithful to what really happened, supposedly in 1921 to 1922, it was still a good, enjoyable biopic. The storyline, the cast of characters, great talents from John Malkovich, Willem Dafoe, Cary Elwes, the list goes on, and unexpected moments, the chilling moments, the climax, and the whole thing that Max Schreck was supposedly a vampire. Creepy moments, great chemistries, and depicting, because, yeah, where they filmed Nosferatu, all that, the music and score, just, yeah, everything about Shadow of the Vampire is really enjoyable. And almost forgot to mention this, like a fun fact, because maybe you guys know about this. Nicolas Cage, he's one of the producers of this movie. And yeah, one of the reasons he produced Shadow of the Vampire is because he'd always wanted to be involved in something vampire related, and in the case of Dracula. And many years later, he would finally get his wish to play Dracula himself in, well, Renfield. Yeah. Not to mention that he is related to Francis Ford Coppola, and yeah, his uncle having directed his very own Dracula film. We know that for sure. Yeah. So it's really cool that Cage was involved in this. And also, another fun fact, because of Shadow of the Vampire, later on, it would lead Dafoe into landing the villainous role of the Green Goblin / Osborn in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Yep, it's thanks to Shadow of the Vampire, he would land that iconic evil role of Green Goblin. Yep. Because, yeah, I think it's totally obvious because of how creepy he was, enjoyably creepy in Shadow of the Vampire, his betrayal of Max Schreck, and what he would do when he would go on to be Green Goblin. Just amazing. Yeah. But yeah, so just wanted to share those few fun facts, because, yeah, I meant to, but yeah, now I remember to do so, and yeah, there you go. Maybe some of you, maybe a lot of you knew about that stuff, but yeah. Okay, so how many stars I give Shadow of the Vampire? Well, why not? This sounds about right, and, you know, with how much I enjoyed it, and yeah, again, it's really good. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 stars. Yes, 8 out of 10 stars for Shadow of the Vampire. And what about you guys? What did you think of Shadow of the Vampire itself? Did you enjoy it for what it was, despite that not really faithful to what actually happened when it came to the making of Nosferatu, supposedly? Yeah, you still enjoyed it, you know, thought it was done really well, and, you know, whom did you enjoy in this movie, you know, from, say, Malkovich to Dafoe most prominently, moments that you did not expect, and yeah, you got, you know, freaked out, just, oh my gosh, just, yeah, and yet at the same time you enjoyed it. Favorite moments, favorite lines, everything that goes on in Shadow of the Vampire. And if it's one of your top favorite films that's a biopic and anything to do with vampires, in the case of Nosferatu and Dracula, and if it's one of your top favorite films that has, you know, say, Malkovich, Dafoe, Cary Elwes, just, yeah. But overall, what do you think of Shadow of the Vampire itself, with what all I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of The Shadow of the Vampire. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And of course, continuing on with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays, stay tuned later tonight, because what I will be reviewing next, well, it's something Guillermo del Toro. And yeah, most of his movies are very perfect to watch around Halloween time. And this one, well, let's just say Tom Hiddleston is one of the main stars. And it has to do with, like, something peakish and such. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just, yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out.